homogeneous synthesizers. Serge TKB, eurorack synthesizer module.
Now that we have familiarized ourselves with the panel controls and jacks, let's look at some practical ways we can patch and perform with the TKB.
Patch examples.
Let's patch a basic 16-step sequence. First, we need to run a trigger into the TKB clock input. We are using an LFO here. Then we will take the CV output from row A and patch that to the 1 volt per octave input of a VCO. Finally, we need to route the VCO to our output. The steps of a sequence can be programmed easily by touching the stage you wish to preview and then adjusting the associated potentiometer. Here's that same basic patch again. But now we are also sending the clock trigger to an envelope controlling a VCA. We are also using CV row B to control a VCF. Here's the same patch again, but now let's extend the sequence length from 16 to 64. To do this, we will send the ABCD output to the VCO and patch the trigger out from step 16 to the vertical clock input. This tells the TKB to step down to the next row of CV pots at the end of every 16 steps, A to B to C to D, and looping back to A for up to 64 steps. The vertical clock input may also be used to step through the rows of a single stage. In this patch, we can program 4-step sequenced arpeggios and then select the active stage with the touchpads. The TKB can also be utilized as a performance keyboard. In this patch, we are routing the key pulse output to an envelope and VCA, so that each time a key is touched, it will trigger the envelope to open the VCA. Sending the key voltage output to a VCO gives us a 5-volt control range in incremental steps. If we instead send a row CV control to the VCO, we can tune each stage for a fully programmable keyboard output. The touchpads also have a pressure output that can be useful for controlling filters, envelopes, etc. The TKB has some gate inputs that allow us to alter the way in which it advances steps. A gate to the hold input will pause the sequence. A gate to the up-down input will cause the sequence to run backwards as long as the gate is held high. The reset input allows us to program the sequence length. The reset point of a sequence can also be programmed by the touchpad. The sequence will reset to the last touch stage. We can also step to a random stage. If our clock source is also voltage controllable, we can send a CV row to it, effectively using the TKB to sequence its own clock. This could be useful for very complex envelope programming with per-step duration. The TKB can also clock up into audio rate. If we patch one of the CV rows to an audio output and run our clock fast enough, we have essentially made a graphic waveform generator with 64 programmable breakpoints. If the clock source is voltage controllable, we could use one TKB to sequence a second running as a VCO. Hopefully this video has served to introduce some patching ideas for the TKB. It is by no means meant to be exhaustive, as the TKB is a versatile module. For more information, including the manual, please visit the ARC website, analogresearch.com.